But today I am super excited to have our young friend here, Corey Nguyen, to join us and to tell us about the mission that he has to trace down his grandfather's. What a beautiful story. So I'm going to introduce you in a little bit, but we're going to, I know we still get 1 minute, but we're gonna start anyway. We're going to have Sarah kick off the program, and we're going to get into who you are and what you do. And I just love the website's name, Son of Vietnam. I just love it.
Yeah, thank you. Cute, so cute. So don't forget to record, Lee.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So is that my turn to kick
Yeah,
off?
you know what? I am even gonna let you be the co-host just in case the electric or the internet go down or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. While Lee is taking care of the tech side, I'm going to introduce myself to kick off our show. So for some of you who never met me, never heard about me, I'm Sarah M. I grew up in Cambodia. However, when I was in college, my country went through a very difficult time. That's when the communist Khmer Rouge took over our country, and they basically destroyed our country and destroyed our life. And I struggled to survive during that difficult time. But with courage, determination, and hope and love, there's so much I can attribute my survival to. But for this month, as we are talking about courage and determination, that's what it takes in order for us to survive a very difficult time. But I cannot say enough that I didn't do it by myself. I got God to help me. So I'm grateful forever and ever. So I was able to escape and arrive in this country back in 1981. So it had been 40 years. I'm so grateful. And I wrote my story in the book, and you can find my book on my website. And I never find my book. Okay, so it is my book, How I Survived the Killing Fields. It's available on my website, sarahm.com. So that's all about me.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. And Sarah also is a speaker. So if you need somebody to inspire your community, she would be the one to contact. And me too. You know, we're both speakers. Anyhow, so my name is Lee Tran. Welcome to our show. Hopefully you have discovered us and has been our audience and have been helping us to tell other people about this program. This is all about giving back. This is all about putting a spotlight on somebody else's story to show their courage, to show their tenacity. That's why we call it a thriving story, because we really want to help the community to thrive. And like I said, my name is Lee Tran. I was also a former refugee. I didn't get out of the country by foot. I get out by sea. No, I didn't swim. We were on the boats with hundreds of people in a very arduous journey. It's a place that you know that you could make it or just disappear in the ocean. And I was not alone. It was a big wave of exodus, of massive exodus, that people tried to escape out of the communists. From the communists was taking Saigon, was taken in 1975, and my family left in 1979. And many, many, many more stories that people escaped to the sea out there, and many did not have a chance to tell their story because they perished out in the sea. So that's my story, and I have a website that if you are curious, you can go to my website, leatran.com, leatran.com. I had my TEDx talk, tell a little bit about my story. I also had my book that it's a memoir that tells the journey of a ethnic Chinese family made it out of Vietnam, and 40 years later, I have the courage to tell it. But today we're going to put a spotlight on Corey Nguyen. And Corey is the second generation here in America. Her mom and her granddad also was in a journey similar like my family. And I think, I don't know which group I met Corey, but I was tracing him down. I say, you need to tell your story on our platform, because it's so great when children grow up and they want to reconnect with their roots. My son also wanted to reconnect after he read my story in my book, and you know, it just feels so good. And I'm sure your mom and your grandpa are so proud on this journey. Corey's mission is to find out who his grandfather was, his infamous singer songwriter in Vietnam who did a lot of political song. So Corey, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me. I was so grateful to receive your message, and I saw your show, and I said I have to come on here as well.
Yes, yes. I mean, we are trying to encouraging people to tell their story, break the silence, because so many times, so many years, we just didn't think that it mattered. It didn't think that, you know, who cares? It's our story. But actually, people do care, and people want to know. And it's a piece of history that we need to preserve.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
tell us. Okay, so I know that. Let me read a little intro about who Corey Cao Nguyen is. He's a documentary director and cinematographer. He is the grandson of Vietnamese musician and activist Nguyen Duc Quang, who created a yoga movement. Oh my God, I would love to hear some of the yoga song right now too.
Yeah.
Who helped started two of the largest Vietnamese newspapers in America, and enthralled millions of South Vietnamese people in his music. But growing up, he never told Corey or his family about his work, always keeping his legacy to himself to protect them from the Northern Communist government retaliation, as his music was banned after the Fall of Saigon in 1975. Now, 10 years after Nguyen Duc Quang's passing, Corey is going on a personal journey of cultural reconnection, traveling around the globe to find those who knew Nguyen Duc Quang and learn who his grandfather really was. What a great mission.
Yeah.
Thank you, Corey, for being here and to share with us. So now I'm going to let you talk and tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about anything that you know and
Yeah,
anything you
yeah.
want to share.
Yeah, for sure. So, this film really started 10 years ago, in April 2011, um, at my grandfather's funeral. Because at that point in my life, you know, he was my grandfather. I loved him, but I didn't know him as anything, you know, more than that, right? But all of a sudden, when we showed up to his ceremony, there were so many people there. There were cameras, reporters. The Vietnamese media had flown over to capture the event. The Vietnamese scouts were there, and I mean, I was too young to really understand what was happening. But I was like, that set the moment of that one question in my mind. I was like, who was my grandfather, right? Because again, I just knew him as the guy who would play guitar sometimes and eat rice with me at home,
Yeah.
you know. And so that really set the journey up in that question in my mind. Obviously, I grew up and I've had a whole film career since then. But now that I've graduated from university and I've put a couple of smaller projects under my belt, I decided that, and also we just passed the 10-year anniversary of his passing. I decided that this was now the time for myself and my family, as well as my team that's working with me, to really dive through and to meet to find the people who really knew him. Yeah.
That is so great. So what is the moment that you know that you want to go into the same career of being in the entertainment like your father did? At what point?
I would say that it was in college because I actually attended UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine.
Yeah, great
And
university.
yeah, it's fantastic. And I actually got in as a biology student because I wanted to be a doctor. But I
Well,
had a
we are, right? Asian,
right,
right?
yeah,
It's either
exactly. Yeah.
engineer or
Doctor,
doctor.
engineer, or lawyer. Those are your three choices.
That's legit, yeah.
So, but then I took a film minor. Actually, I'm wearing a shirt right now called Digifilm, digital filmmaking, which was a minor in film production. And I remember I show up to class on the first day, and at the end of the class, I said to myself, "Well, now I know what I want to do for the rest of my life." So I just fell in love with the process of making films and telling stories, and I didn't last in Bio very long. I transferred out in one semester, so I didn't stay in Bio for very long. And so that was the moment when I knew it was taking that class and realizing that that's what I wanted to do.
Was there
Wow.
a mission?
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a mission back then that you going that so you can actually be part of your grandfather's spirit?
Mm-hmm.
And was that something that lead you to it?
You know, I when I made that decision, I don't think so.
Uh-huh.
Like in my mind, but I think it's clear that because I didn't really in my mind I had sort of put away that my grandfather's story because I was so young when that happened. I didn't really quite process it because I knew he had done some things, but now as a 23-year-old and learning all of his work with his music and his work with Noi Viet and his journalism, I think it was in me, in my blood.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even though I didn't make a conscious decision like that, I think it was part of me that both my grandfather and I love to tell stories. Him with his guitar, and now me with my
Yeah.
camera. You know.
Did it skip a
So
generation? Did your mom also
uh,
a entertainer or?
no, she's not. No, she's not. My mom, her job is to take care of me and my brothers.
Oh.
She had a job she does very
Yes,
well.
that's a job, but that's not her. Yeah, yeah, I know. But now
Oh, it's not her job, not her job per se, but that is what
right,
she does
right,
all
right.
day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because me and my brothers are a handful.
So she came to America when she was only 5.
Yeah, she was
Your
a
mom
very,
is really
very,
young.
yeah, very. She was very small. I don't believe she remembers much of the actual trip. However, I have a lot of uncles who were older, um, who were able to tell me about the experience and how harrowing it was and how dangerous it was, right? And even but they were so young, they're 16 in their teenage years that they just thought they were going, on an adventure, right? They didn't quite grasp the danger
Yeah, I
like the
was
adults did.
16 at that
Yeah,
time, 1979 also.
yeah.
But how much your mom knows about your grandfather?
I've asked her about it. So it's funny because as a child, when we came to America, she would run around and play in the offices of the news station, right? She'd go to some of the concerts and she'd be there, but it wasn't like she understood the significance of it, right? She was just among them, right? And even growing older, um, it was sort of like we all had this understanding that we knew that he had done important work, that he was an important voice in the community, but it's not like we had um, like exact knowledge of his music or his songs or what they meant, right, for the people of South Vietnam at that time. Um, yeah, so it was more so we understood his aura and his importance, but not necessarily the details. Like he has a very tiny Wikipedia page. And that's probably the most we ever got. But obviously, that small amount of information doesn't do justice to the immense importance and history that
It's
he
a
brought.
huge community in California that who
Yeah.
your grandfather interact. So is interviewing them was it hard? I understand. So let's go back to a little bit of the story. So your grandfather is a very super activist in the voice of the Vietnamese people who have actually went against the communists.
Yeah.
So his song, a lot of them were war songs, or was that?
So his music, the reason why his music was banned by the communists was because uh, his songs, for a lot of people, represented sort of the heart of the Republic of Vietnam, of South Vietnam.
Yeah.
Especially song. I mean, his most famous song, which is still performed today by performers and people all over the world.
Can you name a couple
yes,
of his songs?
yeah, I will. His most famous song. I'm gonna butcher this because my Vietnamese is very bad, but it's Vietnam Quay Hung Nao Ye. That is his sort of most famous song because it really.
I should have asked you to just like have a CD or something to play
Yeah,
with. To play
yeah,
with.
yeah. But it's funny because when I look at that song on YouTube, there are families and people in Vietnam who still sing it to this day, and that really moved me, right, to see that. So that music was very emblematic of the South, which is why his music was banned after the war because it was part of that Southern art and culture that was unfortunately erased.
I know that there's a lot of songwriters, singer live in California that back then, I mean, especially I was young too, and I listened to a lot of songs, and Can Ly is one of those songs that is also just talk about the cry out of the South Vietnam peoples and that kind of war that affecting them. So I don't know how much connection you have, like Phạm Duy, Can Ly, all those older folks.
Pham Duy was actually when my grandfather started his band. They did their first big tour with Pham Duy in South Vietnam. He was actually Pham Duy actually was part of the UCA movement that my grandfather started because UCA was about.
So he probably can tell you a lot.
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
your grandfather.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think the UCA movement, which was the musical movement that my grandfather started, which is about community and communal singing. So at UCA concerts, you wouldn't just go and watch the performer sing. It was a group. It was a group sort of effort, right? I remember my uncle, one of my uncles, told me that when he would go, all they needed was one guitar. It was one guitar and a circle of people, and they would sing together and sort of be joyous in their cultural.
I forgot now. You're making me want to go back to YouTube and look up.
Yeah. And so it's great because when I started this project, we reached out to a lot of people, and the word obviously spread very quickly that we're doing this film. And there were UCAP people contacting me from all over the world. We spoke to people from Australia, in the Netherlands, and so we're actually planning to visit this man in the Netherlands named Nguyen Duc Quang. And he was actually a good friend of my grandfather's, and there was another UCAD musician at that time. He actually sent me a bunch of photos of my family when they visited him.
Wow.
Which is it's amazing. Many people
send me photos. And you're digging treasure right now.
Right, absolutely. It's incredible to have people send me photos of my mom when she was young, my uncle when he was young, and it's just like every person I talk to is like another puzzle piece of my grandfather, right? And I collect these different pieces. I haven't been able to talk to him in person, obviously, because we're still trying to raise money for the film. But when I do, we really want to have these, connect these moments of connection, right? We're unpuzzling, and I get to really see who my grandfather was.
So sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
Did you make a documentary about your family?
No. But however, I mean, my family is going to be in this. I mean, they have to be because I'm in this as well. So obviously, I plan to talk to my uncle Dong and my mom Nancy.
She speak Vietnamese?
She does speak Vietnamese. Most of my family can speak, but they cannot write. But most can speak and understand because obviously they live here, their whole lives.
Have they gone back to Vietnam?
I can speak for my family. We went back one time. We did a vacation trip with my grandfather, actually. We went back and we visited Vietnam, but it's funny because I was a young kid, so like I just considered it traveling. I didn't truly take in the cultural stuff. But obviously Vietnam has changed immensely since then. Right?
Completely like 180 degrees.
Oh yeah, because I'm sure even though that trip was in the 2000s, if you go back now, Vietnam does not.
It's nothing the same. Yeah. I have not been back, but I've seen pictures plenty of times. My mom went back, and it just looked foreign. It does not look like the Vietnam that I remember at all.
Yeah, So we went back one time, but I don't remember too much of that trip because obviously I was still pretty young.
Mhm.
But I can't wait to go back and visit as an adult, right? Which is something we do want to do, because actually, my grandfather still has some siblings who are still alive in Vietnam. His younger brother and I believe one of his older sisters, and so we want to go visit
That's
them and
another
talk to them.
treasure right there
Yeah,
that you can
exactly, exactly.
unearth.
Yeah, and his brother still lives in their childhood home in Dalat.
Dala. Whoa,
Yeah,
that's a vacation place.
yeah,
That's like, yeah, I love the weather up there. That's like
yeah.
the best weather. So there's a couple questions that I really want to ask you is,
Hmm.
you said that your grandfather had been in the re-education camp because he was an activist.
Hmm.
Did he talk much about it?
So he was also sent to the re-education camps because he actually served for the South. He was a lieutenant.
Oh, he did.
He didn't
Okay.
serve in the
Not
war
just
because
the music.
no, also because of he actually
I
served
see.
in the South Vietnamese army. Um, when I was growing up, I because when you learn history when you're like in America, they don't teach you about like the Vietnam War. They U.S. and
Right.
Vietnam, and that's not true. There were so
Right.
many other civil conflicts and like because it wasn't just America and Vietnam. There was North Vietnam, South Vietnam,
Yeah.
the other surrounding countries. There was the complicated relationship with the France,
Mhm.
with France, right? So they
With
don't go over
China,
that,
with France,
right?
with
Exactly. So,
America.
yeah, so they don't go over that at all. So my conception of also because I didn't as a child I didn't really understand what it really meant to flee Vietnam because
Right.
in the textbooks it just says oh, they left Vietnam. Oh, great. They don't say that it was a horrific journey,
Oh,
very dangerous. Many like 500,000 people estimated lost their
yeah.
lives. Right. So I
Yeah.
never brought it up because in my history books it was not first of all taught to me. Right. Because after the Vietnam War ends in America they just end and move on versus for us
Right.
that doesn't just end for us. Our
No,
community we had to emigrate to an entirely new
exactly.
country and adjust to a new society. So no, I don't think I personally never asked him about it. I never asked him about the war or anything because I didn't know, and secondly, I don't think I was conscious really to you know to
Yeah, I want to
ask those
share a
questions.
little bit about my story as well
Yeah.
because my son and my niece read my memoir and they were just
Mm-hmm.
like jaw dropping. They had
Right.
no idea. It's like, what do you mean you just go into the boat and take off and have no destination? I was
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it's like, did you just go into the New York, Statue of Liberty and just register? I was like, no, that's not how it works. But seriously, they did not teach anything much. And I also went to a high school to talk. And many of them probably hear the word Vietnam and probably didn't even know where exactly it is and anything more about it. So, so our story is really important. I think, Cambodia and Vietnam and China and Vietnam, all those, I mean, there's a lot of little country has history going back to a long time, but even just recently, 40, 50, 60 years ago, it's not that long ago. And the history, I think, there's just so much to be learned. But I think the best history is learning from people who lived in it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
people who survived it. And what do you hope to make out of this documentary?
So,
A vision?
I yeah, I have a vision for the goals. I mean, there are many things that I would like. I think the biggest one in my heart would be so unlike obviously Pham Duy is a great artist, right? Um, but after my grandfather came to America, he really pivoted. Not that he stopped singing, but he really went more towards media and journalism because he saw the powerful impact of
Yeah,
organizing and the news, right?
yeah.
And so his historical. I mean, amongst the amongst the older Vietnamese generation, they know who he is. They know about Yucca.
Hmm.
They know about
Yeah,
his work. But among the younger Vietnamese generation, not really. They
right.
don't really. They haven't. I mean, they know Vietnam Quay Hung Now. They've heard the song,
Yeah,
right? But they don't know the story behind it or the man who wrote it. So I think one of the primary goals of my film would be to really share his story with a new Vietnamese generation, right?
yeah.
Secondly, it would be to place him in his deserved historical context as a composer who was very vital to the history of Vietnam and his just really share how important his work was to the Vietnamese people, right?
I think it's a wonderful work you're doing. And I think many times when you transfer from one country to a next one, you lost a lot of those roots. Like my grandparents migrated from China to Vietnam. And I can see that when my mom generation, my mom was born in Vietnam. And even though she's carried the identity of Chinese, but she lost a lot of it to Vietnamese. So, but she still can speak both, right? And then it comes to the generation that from our generation that coming to America, our children start losing it. Just like, I hate to say it, but just like you.
Yes,
I mean,
no,
you
you're
know,
right.
When you don't speak the language anymore, it doesn't really seep into your soul. When you say a certain word, it does not mean as much as the one that you understand it when you're in Vietnam language or in that environment. So it's very different meaning. And I'm sure that, you know, like for me, when I listen to Vietnamese music, I have a very, very different feeling. When I listen to Chinese music, I have a very, very different feeling. And then I switched over to American music. I have totally a different feeling. So those language and those arts and those songs, those music, and I'm sure Sarah probably, you know, have that mode too, right? You know, it takes you to a place that out of the context right here, and it takes you back. Like I still want to cry every time I think of Ken Lee's song, you know, một ngàn năm đô hộ giặc tạo, you know, it's like, and I'm Chinese, right? It's just like the song, I don't know how much you say, it was saying that 1,000 years been dominated by Chinese, and then một trăm năm đô hộ giặc Tây, you know, it's like 100 years dominated or colonized by French, and then 30 years of the Civil War. And what is the wealth that a mother leave to the children? It's like, the only thing is the Vietnam country. That's what the mother's leaving. But you say it, if you sing it in Vietnamese, I got goosebumps. Like I felt like I was just so enthralled into that feeling. So best thing is, Vietnamese is not that hard to learn, Corey.
Yeah,
I'm encouraging you to learn it.
Absolutely. So obviously, you know, I am planning on learning, obviously, because I mean I have to. But so when I hear Vietnamese, I still know certain words.
Yeah.
And like I recognize it in my head, but sometimes I don't know the meaning, because obviously there was a time where I really learned it, right? So I've always joked that I'm one concussion away from learning Vietnamese.
Your grandfather used to speak Vietnamese to you?
I think he did. Obviously, you know, when he would talk to me, it'd probably be in the best English he could, but it probably was mostly in Vietnamese.
Yeah. My son, he's half Vietnamese, half Chinese. And I was trying to get him to go Chinese school when he was young. Oh, he hated it. I mean, it's almost like pulling teeth.
I went to Vietnamese school.
And he loved to learn Vietnamese, and he has a dual language app on his phone. And the way he speaks Vietnamese, I hate to say it, but oh my God, it's put me to laughing mode so hard, because the context is different. The way, you know, do a language on the computer, teaching you, and he was like, "Cô Tiệp lắm." But you know, sometimes he makes use of the nouns and the pronouns, but it doesn't matter as long as you're learning. You understand a little bit, and it will get you to even more of that.
Yeah, and I also want to say that this whole film is like not possible without my co-director, whose name is Theoni Lee. She is an incredible Vietnamese music video and commercial director. We went to school together at UCI. That's where we met. She actually lived in Vietnam for a while and came over here to America. Yeah. I believe she's a great help. When I picture this film, I believe I said to her, I was like, if you don't say yes, or if you don't want to do this, I won't do the film, because there's no way with my limited Vietnamese knowledge that I can do it. And I do not, I don't think I want to wait, you know, the 2 or 3 years or the year or so it would take me to be so fluent to be able to, you know, have these really in-depth conversations. Also because, like you said, not being able to speak the language also disconnects you from the culture.
Exactly.
Right? Like I'm in temple, I have no idea what's going on.
Right.
I'm just, mimicking what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But so she brings with her all the cultural background that I do not. Right? Like she is everything that I am not. And so without her, this film really isn't possible. So when I want to shout out my co-director Theoni, because without her, none of this is possible.
How successful are you now in
How
the process?
In the process, what do you mean? In what
Like
context?
the film. I mean, how far have you got?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think you can hear my dog outside. So right now we are in what's we're almost done with what's called development. Development is where we sort of build up the basics of what you need, like for example, like do the boring stuff, like setting up the business stuff, like with California and everything, and really figuring out the story of what you want to do. And right now we are actually started our fundraising part of our film. Okay. So our film is really ambitious in terms of like I don't want to just call my grandfather's old friends on Zoom, because first of all, many don't have Zoom, don't know how to use it. Right. But secondly, I want to go meet them. Like I just feel it's really important to me that I need to go see them and interact with them, because they are the key to figuring out who my grandfather was, right? And they knew him personally. So we are trying to raise $280,000 to make the film, which is what we need to obviously travel the world with a crew of people, and also because we want to go to Vietnam as well. So that is what that's the first stage of our film so far. We're actually launching that today, actually, because Noivette actually released a profile piece they did about me today, actually. Wow. So yeah, actually, if you go to thank you. If you go to the Noivette website, you can read it there, as well as it's on print for those of you who live in Garden Grove. You can pick up a copy. So that's where we are right now. So that we're about to launch this big fundraising campaign to get to this point where we can actually go and make the film.
Awesome. Sarah, you have a question?
Oh, he answered my question while explaining it. Yeah, okay. I was just curious. At what time or when did you lose your Vietnamese language?
I believe I lost it sometime after preschool, or during or after preschool, because that was when.
As soon as you get to school, that's it.
Yeah.
The playground is the play they switching language.
Yeah, because my parents decided to speak English with me at home because my Vietnamese was so good. They just thought I'd keep it, and it was gone. And I did go to Vietnamese school. Apparently, I did go to Vietnamese school. Apparently, so I thought I went for 2 weeks. My parents said I went for a whole year. So obviously there was already some kind of I don't know whether I wasn't paying attention, or I apparently I went and I never retained it. So unfortunately,
I think part of it is not, I can't really say that blaming on young kids, because we adults just trying to make things easy. And I switched and I speak English to my son, and so is my mom. So is my mom. She used to speak Chinese, but it's so much easier, and they will correspond when you speak English to them. So they answered back. So the adult cater in and start to losing that root of making sure that, if they can't speak, then there's no connection, because the kid wouldn't understand them and they don't talk to them that much. So they have to force themselves to speak English. And then doing that, they lost the original roots, right? But I am so glad that you are on the mission to reconnecting your roots and to flesh out the story of your grandfather. And I'm looking forward, I'm following you. I'm looking forward to see your progress. And best of luck on your fundraising. And if anybody in the program here listening, he's looking to reconnect with his father. I mean, his grandfather, I'm sorry, his grandfather, and reconnecting with who the person he was and the culture that he have brought to this country. So how do people reach out to you, or even just to donate, or And when is this anticipated? Is that like a short film, or is that like
No, it is going to be 90 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I want to follow up. I mean, so we would call this a feature documentary, which is that just means
Okay.
like a full movie, like a
Okay. Well,
I don't have to be like 2 hours.
I have someone that I might be able to connect you with. She's a Chinese immigrant from Cambodia. She's
Mm.
born here also. So her father and her uncle was the donut king in California. I don't know if you know.
Oh yeah, that was
You know
that film. That film, I don't know her personally, but that film did really well. I think this year on
Yes,
the film festivals.
yes,
Okay, that's
yes.
one of the films. That's actually one of the films that I saw and I looked at. It was like, oh, like this. It's about these, these films about ancestors and elders. And another film recently came out called Far East, Deep South, which is about a Chinese family in the South, right? So
I'm gonna have to look for it because I think there's the treasure. They're really treasure.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely see my film in that same lineage, in that same sort of pantheon of films about our ancestors and elders. That despite the fact that we're immigrants, but our stories are uniquely American. Right.
Well, is this AAPI Heritage Month?
It is, absolutely.
And we're so glad that we can bring you up here to talk about our heritage.
But yeah, so if people are interested in following the film, we have a Facebook page. It's called Son of Vietnam, which is the title of our film, which is called Son of Vietnam, Nguyen Duc Quang. We have a Instagram as well, same title, Son of Vietnam, and of course you can find us on our website, www.sonofvietnam.com.
Son of Vietnam. So is your documentary in English?
It will be. I myself will be narrating it, so it is in English. But obviously the film features a lot of Vietnamese in it, right? Which is it's really fascinating because people like distributors and funders, they want to know, is your film Vietnamese or is it English? Yeah. But you can't answer that so cleanly because I'm myself I'm not mixed, Vietnamese, I'm not American. The film, like myself, is mixed, right? And so I think
have some translation there.
Absolutely.
Another person I thought it would be a great, you probably know about this guy named Kylie. He did a lot of YouTube that reconnecting people and their heritage, and he's big on YouTube. I don't know if you
yeah. I think I've heard of him. Yeah, he connects old families that have been diaspora. Yeah.
So he might be another great source for your for helping you too, because he speaks Vietnamese and he's obviously very fluent in English.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that'd be another good connection point too.
Yeah.
But
But anyway, I know we'll go over time a little bit, but I am really excited to be able to feature you and to hear a little bit about your story, your mission. And Sarah and I are really appreciative that you come on here and share your story. So best of luck. Hoping that we'll get a glimpse of the film when it's done. Do you have a timeline?
Timeline right now with COVID is very unpredictable because some countries won't let us in, some right. But I think I'm hopeful to try and have the film done hopefully by the next anniversary of his passing.
Oh, we'd love to have you back and tell us your progress.
Yeah.
What kind of treasure did you dig out of this missions? And we'd love to hear that. But
I'd love to come back. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah.
Thank you, and best of luck. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We're going to sign off. Bye.
Bye.